Rain hammered the bathroom window, a relentless drumbeat echoing a past David Miller couldn't outrun. Barefoot on cold tile, the 74-year-old gripped the sink, his reflection gaunt, eyes trembling. He reached for his sock, wincing as a sharp pain stabbed his foot. Then a jolt, blinding, cruel, sent him crashing. His shoulder hit the vanity, had cracked the wall, and he crumpled, a grunt escaping as blood smeared the floor. Peeling off the sock, he saw it, a swollen, weeping tear at his foot, pulsing with something alive, something old. The room flickered, and suddenly he was back in Hanoi, 1970, mud sucking at his feet, pain slicing through him in a prison courtyard. 55 years later, his body remembered what he'd buried, what was clawing its way out. Join us to uncover David's secret. A shard of war that never let go. What pain are you carrying that won't stay buried? David Miller's modest Cleveland home was a fortress of routine, its pale blue walls and cracked kitchen tiles holding decades of quiet discipline. At 74, the Vietnam veteran lived alone, a widower since Margaret's death 12 years ago. His days followed a strict rhythm. Earl Grey tea, newspaper folded twice, 3-block walks, always clockwise. The furniture, old but polished, bore her touch. Lavender curtains, a classical radio station untouched since her passing. Above the fireplace, a faded photo. Young David in uniform, Margaret's soft smile, their son James 10 in a too-big baseball cap. David stared at it daily, a ritual of memory, not sentiment. His neighbors, like Martha across the street, knew him as polite but distant, waving but never lingering. He shelved books at the library weekly, spoke little, borrowed nothing. Silence was his armor, forged in Hanoi's prison camps, where words could cost lives. 3 weeks ago, the ache in his left foot returned, sharper than the usual winter stiffness. David ignored it, as he did most pain, with ibuprofen and grit. But that rainy morning, reaching for his sock, a searing jolt buckled him. He fell hard, shoulders slamming the vanity, head hitting the tile wall. Blood smeared the floor, seeping from a swollen tear in his foot's arch. The pain wasn't new. It was old, alive, insistent. As he lay there, the bathroom dissolved into Hanoi's muddy courtyard, 1970. Rain pounded rusted metal roofs. Guards shouted, and jagged objects sliced his foot, burrowing deep. He'd wrapped it in torn cloth, survived the fever, thought it healed. But the pressure never left, a ghost he refused to name. Now it was back, bleeding, demanding to be seen. Why had he never told anyone? What secrets do you keep locked in your own body? David pulled himself up, dabbing the wound with alcohol, biting back the burn. He bandaged it tightly, refusing to look too long. Routine carried him through the day. Tea, newspaper, no walk. Martha noticed, crossing the lawn with banana bread. No walk today? She asked, pruning shears in hand. Just sore. David lied, accepting the Tupperware. She lingered, sensing something, but he retreated inside. The foot throbbed, a hot pulse climbing his ankle. He sat in his armchair, Bible unopened, staring at the photo. Margaret had known his silences, never pushed. James, now in Denver, called rarely, their talks brief, efficient. David had taught him strength, not vulnerability. He'd met his grandson, Eli, twice, shy like him. He didn't impose, didn't know how to be needed. Have you ever held pain so tightly it became part of you? That night, the pain sharpened, a living thing clawing beneath his skin. He soaked his foot in Margaret's old basin, Epsom salt swirling in warm water. The swelling didn't budge, puffy, red, angry. Sleep brought dreams of Hanoi. Mud, blood, a gash that wouldn't close. He woke gasping, sweat-soaked, the bandage stained with yellowish fluid. He pressed the wound, wincing at the sting. Still, he told no one. James' call came unexpectedly, his voice crackling through the phone. Client canceled. I'm in Pittsburgh. Can I swing by? David hesitated. Sure. James arrived the next day, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, eyes scanning his father's thin frame. You're limping, he said, noticing David's uneven steps. It's nothing, David replied, kettle whistling. James pressed, That's not nothing, Dad. The argument was quiet but sharp, James' frustration breaking through. "You're sweating in a cold house. Let me see." He knelt, peeling back the bandage, revealing the swollen, weeping wound. "This is infected. You need a doctor." David resisted, but James had already booked a VA appointment. Why do we hide our pain from those who want to help? The VA clinic, a squat beige building, smelled of disinfectant and stale coffee. David sat stiffly, foot elevated, while James filled out forms. His navy coat and faded cap marked him as a veteran, his eyes scanning exits like old habits. Dr. Lambert, early 40s, wireframe glasses, examined the foot, red, glossy, a lesion oozing fluid. "How long?" he asked. "Weeks," David said. "Months," James corrected. Lambert's brow furrowed. "We need an X-ray, maybe MRI. This could be osteomyelitis or worse." In the radiology wing, the machine hummed. Capturing David's foot in grayscale, Lambert returned, tablet in hand. "There's a metallic object, about 2 centimeters, embedded near the arch, irregular, jagged." He showed the X-ray, a dark, twisted shadow. "Any old injuries?" David's voice was low. "Hanoi, 1970. Stepped on something sharp in a flooded courtyard. Never saw a medic." Lambert nodded. "It's been there 55 years, causing inflammation, possibly infection." James stared at his father. "You knew?" David nodded. "I always felt it." Why do some wounds stay silent for so long? The MRI confirmed the shard's depth, nestled in soft tissue, corroded but intact. Surgery was scheduled for the next morning. In the car, David stared at the dashboard. "I thought it healed," he said. "It didn't," James replied. "It waited." That night, they ate stew, talked of Eli, work, anything but the shard. David's dreams returned. Hanoi's mud, blood seeping from a gash, something sinking deeper as he reached for it. He woke, heart pounding, the foot burning. At the hospital, the operating room was stark, lights blinding. Lambert made the incision, yellow fluid spilling out, sour and infected. He probed deeper, pausing. "There's something dense." A clamp scraped metal. "What the hell?" he muttered, pulling out a rusted, serrated shard, 2 centimeters long, pitted from decades inside David's body. It clinked into a steel tray, an alien relic from a war long past. "We've got it," Lambert said. David stared at the ceiling, eyes wet. "What pieces of your past are still shaping you?" Post-surgery, David seemed stable, but by evening, a fever spiked. 101.4, then 102.7. Nurses moved quickly, monitors beeping. "Sepsis," one said. James watched frozen as they wheeled David to the ICU. For lines multiplying, oxygen mask fogging with shallow breaths. Dr. Marr, the attending, explained, "The infection's systemic. His body's struggling. Age and war history complicate things." James' fear was primal, childlike. His father, stoic and unyielding, now looked fragile, gray under the lights. He sat by the bed, holding David's hand, the shard in its sample cup nearby. "I'm here, Dad," he whispered. "I need you to come back." He spoke of regrets, of questions unasked, of a father he'd never truly known. The shard, rusted and jagged, sat like a silent witness. Have you ever realized too late what you needed to say to someone you love? David stirred at dawn, eyes fluttering open, landing on James, slumped in the ICU chair. "Still here?" he rasped. James laughed, relief breaking through fear. "Yeah." The fever was down, but David was weak, his body battered by sepsis. Dr. Marr adjusted medications, monitoring kidneys and blood pressure. "He's fighting," she said. James stayed, canceling work, moving life to Cleveland. They talked, haltingly at first, about Hanoi, the shard, the silence. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want it to define me," David said. "But it did," James replied. David nodded. "I let it." The shard, now cleaned and in a cloth pouch, sat on the bedside table, a relic of survival, not shame. Why do we let pain define us instead of sharing it? David went home 6 days later, cane in hand, the wound healing slowly. James stayed, cooking meals, breaking the house's silence. They walked to a nearby field one morning. David steps deliberate, decaying a metronome. At the field's edge, he pulled out the shard, its rusted edges glinting in the sun. "I kept it to remember I survived," he said, placing it in the dirt, not buried, just released. James watched, silent, as they walked back, the silence now warm, full. At home, David stared at Margaret's photo, thumb brushing the glass. "She knew more than I thought," he said. James nodded. "I want to know you, Dad." David smiled. "You're already better than me. How do you let go of a pain you've carried for decades?" The VA followed up, analyzing the shard, a piece of rusted metal, likely from a makeshift tool in Hanoi's prison. David's case prompted a review of veteran records for similar injuries, potentially aiding others. He joined a local veterans group, sharing his story, finding connection in shared scars. James visited more, bringing Eli, who ran through the house, laughter echoing. David taught him to whistle through acorn caps, a small bridge across generations. The house felt alive again, less a museum, more a home. What small act could you take to reconnect with someone you've drifted from? David Miller carried a shard of war in his foot for 55 years, a silent wound that bled into his life, his silence, his distance. A fall in his Cleveland bathroom forced it into the open, revealing not just metal but a past he'd buried since Hanoi. His son James, once distant, fought to pull him back, uncovering a truth that nearly cost David his life to sepsis. The shard, rusted, jagged, a relic of survival, was removed, but its weight lingered, reshaping a father and son who learned to speak what they'd long avoided. David's story, now shared with veterans, may save others from hidden wounds. His home, once a fortress of silence, hums with Eli's laughter, James' footsteps, and a new kind of peace. What pain are you carrying that's waiting to be seen? What could change if you let someone in? Share your thoughts below, and tell us your city. Let's uncover the pieces we all carry, hidden until they demand to be found.